What's going on, guys? Jeff here from Mad Hatter's Reef, and today we're going to take a look at the top 10 ways you can curb fish aggression in your reef tank. Welcome back to Mad Hatter's Reef. This is where I talk about everything reef tank related. So if you love reef tanks like I do, make sure you click that subscribe button and don't forget to hit that bell so you can be updated every time that I upload a new video. Today we're going to be talking about fish aggression and how to curb it, and more importantly, how to prevent it. So let's jump into it. Coming in at number 10 on our top 10 list for curbing fish aggression in your reef tank is adding the least aggressive fish first. Now, this is an important step in a stocking plan for your reef tank, and not everybody follows the proper stocking regimen, I guess we could call it, for adding fish to their tank, and that's okay. It happens. Fish die, then you add more fish as you go on throughout the hobby. But if you have the ability to have a list of fish that you would like to have in your tank, have them listed out from the least aggressive to the most aggressive, and hopefully there's not too much distance between the two, then add them to your tank in that order, least aggressive to most aggressive. This is something that I cover in a video called Selecting Saltwater Fish for Your Aquarium. I cover it in a lot of detail, and if you want to check that out, there's going to be a link down in the description below. But this is a great way to reduce aggression when adding new fish to the tank, and your fish will be a lot more happier for it. Coming in at number 9 on our top 10 ways to curb fish aggression in your reef tank is having a large amount of fish in the tank. Now, I'm not telling you to overcrowd your aquarium or max out your bioload of your tank. That really is a subject for a video all on its own. But by adding a large amount of fish to your tank and having a very well balanced community of fish in your tank is going to reduce the risk that one fish is going to get singled out and bullied by the more aggressive fish in the tank. You take this tip and you take the first tip, put them together, and you have a very solid plan to reduce aggression in your reef tank. Coming in at number 8 on our top 10 ways to curb fish aggression in your reef tank is to provide plenty of hiding spaces within the Aquascape. It seems to be the common trend as of late, and a lot of the tanks that I've seen on YouTube, minimalistic rock work tends to be a common trend in today's reef tanks. And this is a interesting artistic look at a reef tank, but it's not natural, and it doesn't really give fish the adequate amount of functional hiding spaces within the Aquascape. Now, this tip isn't a essential part of curbing aggression, but it does allow the fish to be able to have a moment, collect itself, and be protected from the aggressor, so you can come up with a plan to fix a problem and or resolve it. Coming in at number 7 on our top 10 ways to curb fish aggression in your reef tank is to break up the Aquarium Aquascape. Now, this is something that I did in the 220 gallon. I did it more for an aesthetic purpose, but once I found out that I got my fish in there and realized there is some additional benefits to having separate areas within the tank, and these fish can kind of claim them as their own. I've seen the invertebrates do it as well, have their own slice of the reef, and ultimately reduce aggression within the tank. Coming in at number 6 on our top 10 ways to curb fish aggression in your reef tank is to avoid keeping conspecific and closely related species within the same tank, especially small tanks. A really good example of this is when hobbyists keep multiple tangs in the same tank. Tangs are fish that require a lot of space to swim around, and most of the time when people keep multiple species of tangs, they have a large tank. The reason that they're able to keep multiple species of tangs in the same tank is because they're not exactly the same species. Without knowing or understanding scientific names, the best way to go about this is look at the shape of the fish itself, and different species of tangs have different shapes. And if all your tangs have different shapes, more than likely you're going to have success with keeping them.
The only exception to this rule is tank size, and if you have a tank that is big enough to house multiple of the same species in one tank, that is the exception to the rule. Coming in at number 5 on our top 10 ways to curb fish aggression in your reef tank is to turn off the lights. Turn those lights off. This is to be done when you are actually introducing the fish for the very first time. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to signal to your established fish in the aquarium that it's time to go to sleep. They're all going to go find their little tiny beddy buys in the reef tank and Aquascape and go to sleep for the night. And this is going to allow the fish that you just introduced to the tank to kind of collect itself, figure out its surroundings, and find a space to call its own. This isn't something that is foolproof or going to work long term, but it is going to give that fish within the first couple of hours of being introduced to the tank a shot to kind of feel things out before it has to deal with all the other fish. Coming in at number 4 in our top 10 ways to curb fish aggression in your reef tank is to feed your established fish in your reef tank first before adding the new fish. Now, I know that this seems very simple, but it is very effective, and it can do a lot to reduce aggression within the tank. And a lot of aggression that happens within a tank has to do with food instability. Now, a tank that is underfed because whatever reason why, you can actually witness the fish become more aggressive with other fish, even if they have been established with that group or not. So feeding your fish before actually adding a new fish to the tank can do a lot to curb the overall aggression towards that fish once it is released into the tank. Coming in at number 3 on our top 10 tips on curbing fish aggression in your reef tank is to rearrange the aquascape. Now, this tip is more of a reactive tip than it is a proactive tip, in the sense of like number 1, where you added the least aggressive fish to the tank first and then worked your way up to the most aggressive fish. That would be a very proactive way of adding fish to the tank. This one in its own right is more of a reactive rearranging of the aquascape, because you have your fish in the tank, they're established, and you're trying to add a more peaceful fish to the tank. Maybe you had a couple of fish die in the tank, that tank's been up for a while, and you're trying to spice it up and throw a new fish in there, not as aggressive as the fish that are already established. This is a great way to kind of hit the reset button within the tank and give all the fish a equal chance to establish itself and have a better chance as if you just kept the aquascape the way that it was. Coming in at number 2 in our top 10 ways to curb fish aggression in your reef tank is to add a small mirror to the side of the aquarium. Now, this can be extremely effective in both freshwater and saltwater, and I've seen it work quite often with tangs. And this is a really good way to, once you have fish established and you're trying to add a new addition to the tank, that is something that is going to dramatically reduce the aggression towards the new addition to the tank. And what you're doing with this is you're actually showing that fish its reflection, which it thinks is another fish, and they're already aggressive, and they're going to be extremely aggressive to a fish of its own species, which kind of relates back to our previous tip where we talked about not adding fish of the same species. This is going to take that fish's attention all from the new fish and put it 100% on the mirror, which is not going to bother the new fish at all. It's really going to spend all of its time beating up on this fish that it can't get to in the mirror. Coming in at number 1 on our top 10 ways to reduce fish aggression in your reef tank is to use a Acclamation Box to introduce your new addition to the tank. Utilizing a Acclamation Box promotes a healthier introduction of showing the established fish in the tank this new addition. And what you can achieve by using an Acclamation Box is you're going to have a good understanding of what is going to happen when you add that fish to the tank. If you have a fish that is just trying to break the walls on that Acclamation Box to get to that fish inside the box, and it doesn't subside over the course of a few days, you know that when you let that fish into the tank that it's probably going to not make it. and you can make a informed judgment that that fish isn't going to work for your tank. You can bring it back to your local fish store, trade it for a credit or coral or what have you, and ultimately protect that fish from something absolutely horrible from happening to it.
Alright folks, that's going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. If you want to support this channel, there is a link down in the description below, which will bring you to Mystery Reef Box, my store, where there's a bunch of items on there for sale. I thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you next time right here with a brand new video.